May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be now and always acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. House of Fraser, House of Windsor, House of Commons. We're used to being reminded that church means people more than buildings, but the same is also true of house. House of Fraser, a business. House of Windsor, a dynasty. House of Commons, an institution. A house is people too. And it's the same in the Bible. Christ's hearers in his own day will have thought, when he said, "In my Father's house," they'd have thought he was talking about the temple. Lots of rooms in it, they'd have thought, and had nodded their heads wisely. Anyone reading St. John's account of it in Greek will have understood there are lots of staging posts in heaven. That's the meaning of the Greek word, places where a traveller can rest, and that will have given them the idea of heaven as being a kind of journey. In my Father's house are many mansions. That is, of course, the authorised version of it, and your average Englishman hearing that would have thought of a stately home after a lifetime of making do with a back-to-back, two-up, two-down. At last the family will get a bit of room to live in. A modern Greek, on the other hand, hearing those words in his own language, will think it says, there are lots of monasteries where my Father lives. This whole paragraph is one of those times when Jesus teaches by using ambiguity, letting people get the wrong end of the stick deliberately, and then setting them right, and that's the way they grasp the truth. Any of the interpretations I've just given you would have seemed self-evident to different people hearing them. But Christ's meaning was yet another one. There is plenty of space in my Father's household. There's plenty of space in my Father's household. The family of Christians is open to all comers. But to the original hearers of what he said, it would have been clear that he was talking about the temple as the house of God. Right from the start, actually, the Jews were doubtful about the idea of God having any kind of house at all. When King David had the idea of building a place for God to live in Jerusalem, saying, "Behold, the king lives in a house of cedar, but the ark of God dwells in a tent," he told his favourite prophet of his plan, and the prophet Nathan encouraged him. But that night, God said to David in a dream, "Would you build me a house to live in? A house? I've never lived in a house." God is everywhere. God is in heaven and on earth. He can't be contained in a building. And so David left well alone. The same is true of the church in our day. We know that. We call it the house of God, but we know that God is not contained here. God is everywhere. God is in heaven and on earth. He is in our hearts and in our minds. The same is true, as I say, of the church, as it was for the Jews in the temple. And it seems truer than ever today. Our buildings are closed, a lockdown is in force, we worship and we pray at home. Now, in a way, of course, that's as it should be. Our great-grandparents would have gathered at the big table with the family Bible, and they'd have prayed together at home as a matter of course. Maybe we need to rediscover the hearth and home as a primary holy place. Maybe we should feel more comfortable beginning and ending the day in prayer, seeing it as the norm during the day, as I'm sure most of you already do. And yet still we grieve that our church building is closed. It does, after all, have a deep significance for us. People have been worshipping here for over 800 years, and it's this space that a long line of our predecessors have loved and cared for. Christ is the link between us who live in these villages and the God who exists within and beyond time. Christ is our link with the God who created us, and it's here, in this building, in church, that we meet him, where bread is broken and wine is poured, where the word is proclaimed, where we look in our neighbours' faces for the eyes of Christ our friend. This is the place where our common life, indeed our identity as a nation, our relationship with the cosmos, is recognised and sanctified. It's a place where we come together as a family, as a household, as the household of God, to pass on to our neighbours the message, "Come unto me, ye that are weary and heavy laden, and I will refresh you." And again, "Suffer the little ones to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of heaven." We've kept the doors locked out of obedience to our bishop. I took that vow at my ordination, and I can't be released from it. But the moment we're given the go-ahead, which may be quite soon, the moment we get the go-ahead, I want us to open again. I want us to stay open from dawn to dusk. I want the whole community of Salomstead enough to know that we're open, that prayers are being said here again, that we have a new candle stand for anyone to use, that people can come in here and stay as long as they like. When the flag eventually comes down on Whit Sunday, I'd like it to be replaced with a pennant. A pennant is a sign that a ship's ready for action. How soon can we get a pennant made? Can we get the notice board looking new and well maintained again? Clear out the porch, make it smell fresh. If you come here and look, you'll see how well Jenny's been tending the garden. It's looking beautiful out there. But in the church, can we have flowers again, please? And will as many of you as take daily exercise try to include the church in your rounds? Come in and say a prayer, make the place look occupied. Tell all your friends and neighbours we're back in business. Even though the main Sunday service won't happen again for quite some time, we are able to come in here for private prayer, and we must make the most of that. The lockdown started in Lent, and it felt like our penance. If it begins to be eased in Eastertide, will that be our fresh start, our new beginning?